Okay, so I've got thousands of people on my list, maybe tens of thousands on my list. There's a women's drumming convention that happens, and people fly in from all around the world, and it's like huge. It's like a movement.
How do you keep your clients engaged between in-person events? What else can you do without falling back into the trap of one-to-one time for money? And how do you ensure the high quality content you make continues to serve your business as it changes? Welcome to Not Another Business podcast with me, Toby Goodman. My guest today is Ciara Chinniah, a working mum and professional drummer. She's been through the record deal and touring phases. More recently, she's a published author and educator. Frustrated with a capped income, Ciara quit teaching in schools and started teaching privately on her own terms. Then she made a genius move. She started drum camps for women looking for a safe space to learn, build confidence and community. She also co-hosts a brilliant podcast called Drummer Mumas, aimed at bringing drumming mothers and fathers together. I'm a massive fan of it. She joins me today to talk game plan and what next and even better looks like now that she's established her business. If you're in business and identify as pod curious, or your podcast isn't working out the way you'd hoped, I've got more for you, including episodes, my best-selling book, Narrow Podcasting, and Profitable Pod Method skill sessions. For all that and more about how I can support your business, head over to narrowpodcasting.com.
Thank you for initiating this chat. I'm very excited because what I like about you is you seem to be talking my language in terms of business and drums and podcasting, because I feel like I'm at a place in my life where I'm really interested in business stuff, and not many drummers I talk to are into that.
You're obviously an amazing teacher. You're an author. I think you still do one-to-one teaching. Is that right?
Yeah.
You're a parent. And then you've got this thing where you do drum camps specifically for women and you hold space in a really safe way. And that's really interesting because A, it's great that you're doing that. And the fact that it's drums and that still women playing drums is still considered to be not as much anymore, but certainly when I was coming up, it was like, oh, do you know any girl drummers? Like, it's a weird thing. And it's not weird at all. And you're doing it now in a really cool way. And especially because of what's happening, a couple of slightly shady things happened in the UK. I don't know what the word is, exploitation or just creepy shit going on with a specific female related drum thing. Love that you're doing it. Love that you're the face of it. And then you've got this podcast, Drummer Mumas, with Gemma Hill.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know, but I know of, talking about what it is to be a parent, what it is to be a drummer. So good. What's next for you?
I love so much my drum camps. I just had one at the weekend and I'm still not over it. I'm still exhausted in a really good way because it's more than drums. It's so emotional and about all the psychology behind learning, intertwined with being a woman and so many confidence things we can feel. And I'm sure a lot of guys feel it too, but I see a trend amongst ladies who are just amazing on the drums, but don't believe in themselves. So it can be really emotional. I love it. So what's next actually is when I'm finished camps, which is the summer, I'm going to have a break, which is going to freak me out. I'm going to just try and balance. I would like to do some more lessons or workshops online so people can access it online and I'm not trading my time for money all the time. So I'm making that transition from teaching quite a lot of one-to-ones to trying to ease up a little bit is my plan. And I'm also doing a retreat next year in Barcelona. Drums, yoga, meditation. Yeah. So that's what I'm working on.
Okay. That's so good. So I said to you, James, he started eBass Guitar, which is about helping rookies learn how to play bass. And be able to do a gig in a bar.
Yeah.
So his target market, not specifically female, but definitely has women. And I think most of his clients are in the US. Most of them have got jobs. They just want to be able to play the bass in a band, and it's all great. So he's found this market, which is pretty big. And the way he communicates is different to maybe his competitors, which is what makes him unique, which is the same as you. And he has a membership where he teaches, he's got hundreds of videos at this point where he teaches how to hold a bass or what the string notes are called, like absolutely from the start all the way up to playing walking bass lines or what have you. And yeah, I totally see you doing that. I can totally see you being able to record certain amounts of content on the drums that people can look at posture, for example, or
I'm going to sit up straight.
yes, whatever, like technical specific stuff. Great, you can do that. There's also loads of it already that exists. I think the thing that you have is the ability to coach them and help them and talk to them because you're you in a way that they wouldn't be necessarily interested in Jared what's his face from Drumeo talking. Not because he's bad, but because there's a big difference between being a woman who lives in the UK who's interested in yoga and all of that stuff. So I think there's definitely a market for it. The fact that you've targeted specifically women is really cool, and it makes you happy and it makes them happy and awesome. I love the fact that you've got a Drummer Mumas podcast. And my initial thought was a bit, I wonder how many drummers they're going to go through before they stop being able to find these women who play drums. Luckily, there are more than there used to be, as we said, but you're also speaking to dads. So I don't feel like you're being exclusive. It's just a really nice vibe. And like I said, I really enjoyed the episodes that I've heard so far. So how can your podcast and everything you do just help you get to where you want to go? And am I right in thinking that where you want to go is a membership-based business where you're getting recurring subscriptions every month, where people have a certain amount of access to you, and maybe you're working like you do in real time on your camps with cohorts of women?
That's a good question. I think it's more about visibility in terms of having the conversations that I've always wanted to hear about. Hold on, that dude is drumming in the West End, but hasn't he got 5 children? Like, what? How's he doing that? Or what's the work? How are they splitting roles in their family? I don't understand. Please tell me. And the same for the lady who's doing with Cher or whoever. How are you doing that and your family? But I think it's all just another way for people to get to know me, and that builds trust. And then if people trust me, then they will more likely want to reach out to me and go, hey, I'd really like to learn with you. So I guess that's what I've learned so far about podcasting, and anything that I put online is to connect, build trust, and also, what's that word? When I can show that people had a good time at my camps.
Yeah, show the result.
Social proof. There we go.
Okay, that's the
Social proof. And
yeah.
I've been on a little journey myself, figuring out all of this stuff. How am I going to do camp, and how am I going to promote that then? And how do I email people? And the first time I did an ad, I was so scared because I just thought, I don't know if I can swear, but I just thought, oh God, I don't want any trolls like saying I'm sexist, which I did get, by the way. And then I realized, just target it to ladies. What are you doing?
Funny that. Don't target it to men who could actually. The thing that's really annoying about, right, is that if I have two boys, but if I had a daughter, I'd want to see that and I'd want to say, hey, you want to learn with your old dad? Because there was that point. And my eldest son, I taught him during COVID, and he got into it and he's into it. But he's definitely at the stage now where I'm his dad, and I actually would love for him. I will send him at some point. He'll get drum lessons from someone else because it's just better. I'm not. There's only so much of that kind of parent-child dynamic that you can cope with when you're. God bless anyone who homeschools. I did not, and we all did for a few years there. So that's a shame that you're only targeting women, but it makes sense. But also, if I had a daughter, I'd want to see those.
Yeah.
So target market. How would you describe your target market other than women who want to play drums or who do play drums? You seem to have two levels of camps, right?
Yeah, I have a few. I have total beginners, intermediate, advanced. I'm going to add intermediate to advanced next year. What else?
How many people are currently on your list of,
Oh, so not that many. I'm just building it now. Like, I remember a few years ago, I had 12 people on my list. And I remember phoning my brother, because my brother's really into like marketing and stuff. He encouraged this years ago. It took me a long time to catch up. I was like, bro, I've got 12 people and I don't know any of them. And he was like, yeah, keep going. So now I've got 444. But it's really exciting to me. Like, sounds so geeky. I'm really excited to build my list. And it's been really cool seeing it happen and being really intentional with what I post and then seeing the list grow. It's really cool. I'm really excited to just go for it.
what's the most outrageous? I couldn't possibly say this because I'm British. What's the most outrageous, best possible thing 3, 4, 5 years down the line to be happening?
Okay, so I've got thousands of people on my list, maybe tens of thousands on my list. There's a women's drumming convention that happens and people fly in from all around the world and it's like huge. It's like a movement. And maybe I do like a crossover from drumming into, it's like self-help, like a drumming talking therapy thing. I feel like there's something that when women are together and drumming, it's so cool.
Yeah.
So I think there's something there about unlocking your potential and being able to do something that you didn't think you could, that drumming can unlock for a lot of people. That's what I see.
Yeah, I like that drumming has an immediate result around, like with a saxophone or something, it can take you 10 to get a note out of it that doesn't split or sound hideous. You hit a drum and it gives you something back. So I love that you can go in on a beginner's level and teach basic time and get something going very quickly. And that's why there's been drum circles and all that kind of stuff for years. Okay, so great. So what needs to happen for that? You've got a podcast with somebody else who seems totally cool. Here's what you're not doing. You're occasionally, but in fact, the episode I just listened to, you didn't mention it. The guest mentioned well done on your drum camps. You're not mentioning it on your podcast.
Yeah, it feels cringe. Like I'll tell you something, a secret, which is not going to be a secret. I have a podcast ready on my own. And it's been my intention to just do a podcast on my own, which is then fully talking about camps, teaching, and like my journey through it, but also bringing people with me. So then I can talk about it. It feels a bit, maybe I'm being too British, but not right to talk about it too much because it's a shared podcast.
Yeah, and there's some politics in there that because you've got a co-host, the deal is you're both drummers, you're both mamas. It's so good. But I'm sure you could have the beginnings of a conversation that says, hey, what if we both use this to grow what we're trying to do outside this podcast? With podcasting, have you heard of a thing called dynamic ads?
I feel like that I've heard that, but I don't know what it is.
Do you know like a banner ad on a website?
Yeah.
And if you go back to Amazon or whatever, there'll be you might like this, and then the next might like that. So with dynamic ads on podcasts, you can record a piece of audio, which I suggest would be something like, if you're a woman who's looking to learn drums in a safe environment with other people, you're new or you just whatever, like all the benefits of what it is that you do, which are many. You might be interested to know my next drum camp is happening on. Go over here and find out more. That is a piece of audio that is 30 to 45 seconds long. That's dynamic. What that means is that can be placed at the front or anywhere, at the middle or at the end of all of your episodes at the touch of a button. Which means that, like, you just interviewed Derek McKenzie from Jamiroquai, who's super cool and loads of people know who that is. And so that episode just came out, I think. People will listen to that in a year's time, and that conversation will be as cool as it was when it came out, because it's a rock star session drummer talking about being a dad of 3 kids. The way that you can use that podcast to grow your business in a year's time is to make sure that you have dynamic ads talking about what it is you do at the beginning, middle, or the end. And you can share that with your co-host, right? So Emma's got something she's working on as well. Then she can have a spot to talk about specifically what she's doing. And you can change things. The other thing you can do, because it's such a good podcast, honestly, I think
Thanks.
the other thing you can do is you can think about, okay, I'm somebody who teaches drums, runs camps, da, 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 da. So you've got a pretty clear target market. Who else who doesn't do what you do serves that target market?
I don't know.
I'll give you a really easy one.
Okay.
And I know that because I was in there the other day and I saw you were in there the other day as well. And I'm sorry we didn't meet each other. Where do we both go, even though we've never met in person before?
Rubik's Studios?
Right.
Yes.
You go to drum shops.
Yeah.
So you're looking at businesses that serve the same target market and deliver a different result. Drum shops, yoga, like whatever, all the other stuff that you do doesn't have to be drum specifically, but anything where you talk about it. And I know that you've got you've got deals with Sonar and a few other things going on. That's so good. They would want exposure. If you're just starting playing and you want a low volume kit for your da-da-da, you might want to check out this drum set from such and such. Those people or those shops want access to people who you've built trust from, because the host read ad in podcasting is so strong. American DJs did it for years and we didn't do it in the UK. It was always some kind of highly produced thing, whereas you'd have traditional American radio having the host read this is brought to you by this. That is a transfer of trust. And because you've built trust, that will be very appealing to partners. So that's another way of bringing money in.
How do you approach those people?
You already got a relationship with at least 1 or 2 drum manufacturers. So you don't need to approach them, do you? You could just say, this is what I'm doing. Would you like to try? Because of the dynamic ads, here's the other super sexy thing about dynamic ads. It doesn't have to be a massive amount of money. It's about the time. You can say, well, I'm going to do an ad for either the entire brand or talk about with their marketing department what they're trying to push. Is it a beginner drumstick or is it a launch of a new kit? Whatever it is, what are you working on? Would it be useful to you if we trialed 3 months of ads on my podcast that speaks to this target market and see how it goes? And they'll say, that sounds interesting. Tell me more. They call, we work out what the thing is, put it on, and then in 3 months, it's gone. And then there's FOMO for those guys because you can sell that space to a competitor or it can be replaced by something else. So you're not signing a lifetime of putting, I love this product on everything you've ever done because of how cool that technology is.
I love it.
Is that useful?
Yeah, it's totally useful.
So I love that for you because you can use it for your own stuff, i.e. your camps and your what's coming up and your membership that you're going to launch where And people don't need more stuff. If I wanted to learn how to play Rosanna, I could go on YouTube and watch 500 drummers show me how to play Rosanna.
Yeah.
But I want you to teach me how to play it because I like how you communicate and I connect with how you teach. That's literally it.
It's interesting, isn't it? I was having a conversation with my other brother because I am a Tony Robbins fan, been to loads of seminars. He said to me, "Oh, let's go see Tony again. Let's do it." And I was like, yeah, I do love him still, but I actually really love listening to all these ladies who are kicking ass because they're where I'm at. And as I've gotten older, it's really become apparent. I love him. He's so inspirational, motivating, and all the rest of it, but he's not living my experience so much as these ladies are. And it's the same thing with teaching. You're drawn to someone who is most like yourself sometimes because you're like, if they're doing it, then I could.
So check this out. I worked with a guy called Howard Cooper, who's a lovely dude. He lives in North London. He's a therapist and a hypnotherapist. Really interesting guy. I did some work with him on his podcast years and years ago. And he'd done all that as well. And he said, Tony Robbins changed my life. And he said, but not in the way you'd expect. He went to a thing. He said, I went to a thing and I left thinking, how the hell did he do that? And then I made it my life's mission to work out the techniques he was using to get in the zone, like thousands of people. And then he also told me about this thing that I think you may have gone through. And he said, have you heard of the Tony Robbins effect? Have you heard of the Tony Robbins effect?
No.
He said, someone coined it. It's what happens when you go and see Tony Robbins and you're so pumped because he's amazing and he does all this stuff and whatever. And then the next day you wake up and go, oh shit, I'm not Tony Robbins. And that's the problem. And you've just described that because you've said what you're finding inspiring is where people are today. He's obviously very good at what he does.
Yes.
He's an absolute master, but he isn't somebody living in North London. Like, so
Exactly.
like ahead, but not so far ahead they're flying around in private jets. Just you want tactical help. If you know what you
Yes.
because we all want to be inspired and we all want to be motivated by people who are super, super amazing. But we also need an element of tactical help that says, okay, so you've got 444 people on your list. How do we double it? What's the lifetime value of a customer? What are you saying to them? Like, as soon as you said, I've just finished one of my camps. It was amazing. It was amazing. Whatever you said at the beginning, immediately I wanted to ask you about follow up, what your retention strategy is and what the rebooking is like. What have you said to them when they're in that moment? Because that moment is going to, over the course of time, dilute. And at the moment, you've got a chance now within the next couple of, I'm not saying don't take a break because clearly you want to take a break, but there's a moment after you've delivered a show as a drummer on a gig, or if you've delivered an amazing lesson or masterclass or whatever, where people are buzzing because of how the experience was. And that's the moment where you say, do you want to come to Barcelona? It's 10% off this weekend before I release it to the rest of the people. That makes sense?
Oh, totally.
That's super tactical. That's not step into your true self. That's actually a super tactical thing that you could do to grow your business. So when I was seeing all this stuff you're doing and I was so excited. What's coming out for you from this conversation? Because I'm throwing like everything at you now.
I feel like I'm just on the beginning with all of this. And it's exciting, but it's also can feel a bit like, oh my God, there's so much to learn. For me, I'm like, okay, when it's just after a camp, my main thing is get a review now.
Yeah.
Because they're buzzing. So that's what I do. I'm like, give me a review, that would be great. So then I can show it and it's good social proof. And then, yeah, I don't have much follow-up. We have a private Facebook group that I invite everyone to. And so that's cool. And then how I do the camps is I will just release all of the dates for next year. So it's a bit weird this time because in October, I'm going to release them all again for next year. And usually she's releasing the tickets. Quick, get on. And it's really exciting.
How many people are in the Facebook group then?
65.
Okay. So 444, 65. Do you do the early bird to my member?
Yes.
Yeah. So you'd say I'm releasing them. That's super cool.
Yes. And for the retreat, that's what we're doing too. We've got like a 3-step thing where it's like super keen people telling in secret. It's the secret launch. And then it's just the camp ladies launch. And then it'll be the world.
And then do you have anything that incentivizes them to tell a friend?
No, I do not.
So even if you think about, especially if you're doing paid ads and you're thinking about, and you do the maths on the cost per acquisition of client, right? It's probably less than save 25, 50, 100 quid on this thing when you refer a friend using this code. Because paid ads, especially early on in a business, are pretty dangerous. They can, like a bit of a money suck. Those super loyal fans who would literally walk over coals to learn with you rather than anyone else, they're the people who are your best salespeople. So yes, get a referral because but then you're still putting it out. You're still maybe even paying for an ad where someone's saying, she changed my life. Of course, do that stuff, but also help them to help you, because your biggest fans will do anything to make sure that camp is happening again because you can afford to run the thing.
Yeah, I love that.
So definitely that's something I'd look at.
Okay.
The other thing that is, it's not like a massive problem, but the thing that I'd be a little bit aware of is the Facebook group thing, because of the fact that you don't own it. At the main thing, you own the email addresses of those people. So if something happens to Facebook, it gets closed down, or some nightmare person makes a complaint and then they turn it off. So it might be worth at some point owning your own community platform where people log in. And
yes,
with Facebook also is because it is Facebook, it's easy to get distracted and click on something else, and then you're into your feed and not in the thing. And I think one of the most valuable things about what you do, and I think what I do, to be honest, is hold space for your clients and your customers. So to say, we're over here on this app, or there's a private link and it's away from the noise of Facebook, really speak to what you're doing as well. So
I like that.
At some point, not urgent, but I might also look at that, because those things aren't that expensive anymore. They used to be really expensive. They're not, but the value add is massive, like the perceived value add for the.
Yeah.
So the other things, you've heard this phrase, I'm sure, that I like to use a lot: the low cost, high value. Cost to you, high value to them. So when you give them a t-shirt or a pair of sticks, when they come in, they get a little care package. I've seen it makes people feel so welcome, and you want to maintain that feeling throughout the year between camps. I think you're way further along than you are, and I think you could speak to people who are running massive memberships who are still nervous about doing in person. So I love that you started there and you're moving into online, but we can learn so many lessons from COVID about how people don't want to be online as much anymore. They want to be out in the world and hanging out in person together. I love what you've built. I'm just so buzzing for that partner thing and making sure that the podcast, or maybe podcasts that you have, if you're about to launch another one, make your life easier, not noisier, because they're all feeding the same goal, which is you're going to have a massive convention. Go look at Tony Robbins. If you want that dream, then what that means is you need other women teaching for you.
That scares me a little bit.
But you can be somebody who is a drummer, a great communicator, someone who understands the basics of breathing and yoga or what have you, and all the specific things, maybe people who are trauma-informed counselors. There are a few things that you could get that make up what one of your specific instructors does, and they could be going all year round, all around the world, and you wouldn't necessarily always have to be there.
Yeah.
And that's a business that can run itself and that potentially you can sell if you need to or if you want to, for whatever reason that might come down the track, because life.
I like that.
Yeah, good. I'm so happy. Do you know what the 10x rule is?
No.
I've heard it called the 10x rule. The 10x rule seems to be law of nature in business, that for all of your customers, clients, whatever, if you have one thing that is 10 times the price of your main thing, 10% of your audience will buy it or clients will buy it. So Mike Michalowicz wrote a book called Profit First. I think he uses the Starbucks as an example. And the Starbucks example is this. In most flagship Starbucks around the world, in the big cities, you can buy a coffee machine for 500-600 quid. Because occasionally someone walks in and goes, shit, I've forgotten to buy my friend a birthday present. Or, oh, yeah, they're just big time, but they just buy a coffee machine. While everyone else is going in and spending 5 quid on a latte. What it does is it also is a kind of price anchoring, which is, wow, if they coffee machines, their coffee must be really good. So then you just get more. If she does a retreat in Barcelona, those drum camps in North London must be awesome. So just by showing people that you sell this other thing. Now imagine what that's like with coaching and mentoring packages online. You pay X for this, and every month we do an Ask Me Anything, and I put out a couple of drum lessons that you get access to first, and you ask me questions. The 10% of you are going to want my personal help. I've got a 5-person group. You're going to be in the same ability level, technically, and we're going to go deep twice a month for an hour, peer-to-peer support, and I'm just going to be in the room a bit more, because this isn't about how to play the Rosanna Shuffle anymore.
No.
How to cope with the fact that you've just been asked to count it in and you only got half an hour to learn it. Or whatever the problem is that happens when you're out in the world playing music. Oh, shit, and there's no childcare for the gig you've just been offered, and how do you do that? So the 10x thing's really interesting because that also helps you think tactically about becoming the British female drumming Tony Robbins in a real way.
I love it.
What's been most useful so far?
It's messaging. Messaging has been the most useful because you're affirming what I've been thinking about, and just by having something that flows through the podcast that makes sense, that shows people what I'm doing. The dynamic adds is, oh God, yeah. It just makes sense, even if it's only 10 people listening or whatever. It's really important to put those things in place because you're right. I don't know who's going to be listening in 6 months or a year. And if I don't have any like call to action or just, hello, this is me and what I'm doing, then how can I expect it to grow or my audience to grow?
Yeah, we built something amazing. We forgot to tell about it. Classic creative move.
Yeah. I feel like I've got a creative brain, not business brain.
Great.
Yet.
You have got a business brain, 100%. The classic phrase, probably every conversation I have, like the best marketing phrase in the world, enter the conversation that's already going on in their mind.
Yeah.
with I'm a woman, I don't want to be feeling awkward about learning how to play and dealing with everything that comes with being this and that and the other. If only there was someone who I could go to and spend a couple of days with like-minded women. Guess what? That's exactly what you do.
Yes. Thank you so much. That was super helpful. Buzzing.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please give it a 5-star review and share it with someone you think it would help. If you're a business owner considering podcasting or you're not getting the results you wanted from the podcast you have, I've got more episodes, a best-selling book, Narrow Podcasting, and Profitable Pod Method skills sessions, all designed to help you where you are right now. For all of that and how I can support your business, head over to narrowpodcasting.com.